Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Milan, the show of Harvard, farming, and three amazing locations at the Vinaigrette restaurants. Today's chat is with the amazing restaurateur herself, Miss Erin Wade. She has three locations in of her amazing Vinaigrette concept: Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and this week marks the one-year anniversary of the Austin Vinaigrette location located at 2201 College Avenue. We have a great chat. We talk about fashion, probably the only Harvard grad I've had on the show and may ever have. She's very intelligent, she's very bright, ambitious, and it's really exciting to see what kind of farm-centric ideas and thoughts and processes she can bring to the Austin food scene. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this chat with Erin Wade.
Drive from Austin a lot.
How long is that drive?
It's about 11 hours. I keep trying to will it to be shorter than that,
right,
and it just won't go under 11 hours. But when you're in the middle of some places that you are on that drive, the best option is Subway.
It's the healthiest option. And this is not a plug for Subway, but
I mean, I know. But the funny thing is, I actually tell my staff this. I stopped at this Subway. I can't remember what town I was in. And this guy, he just made the shit out of my sandwich.
Like he enjoyed it?
Yeah. He was like, you know that Louis C.K.? I love Louis C.K. Uh-huh. And, well, I can't repeat it because it has words that are just
totally can.
No, but it's words that are even worse. I say fuck all the time, but it's like the N-word and only he can pull that off.
Yeah.
But anyways, he says something about someone making the shit out of his latte. And I was like, this guy made the shit out of my freaking sandwich. It was so incredible. But at the end, he and the girl that were standing there were like, I made it with love. And I was like, he did.
I saw it happen.
I saw it happen. So, you can see those moments of what I think food's all about.
Yeah.
You do see it. And we love to hate on chains, and they have a lot of problems. But every once in a while, you'll get a glimpse of what hospitality is all about anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. And I think that's important to remember because we can get a little rarefied and snobby in our world.
Absolutely.
I'll
tell you what, once they started making a sriracha mayo, I mean, I was kind of sold, right?
I know.
I'm not above that.
You know what is so weird? Everything's accelerated now with web stuff. Like, it used to take a long time for trends to filter down into the mainstream.
Yeah.
It happens so fast because, it's a Google search away.
Yeah.
So you'll see, I mean, sriracha's been around for a while, but for Wendy's to be having a sriracha
fries or whatever, yeah.
Already, when it's still on, we have sriracha aioli with our kale fritters. I was like, damn, I can up my game. Wendy's got this, you know what I mean? It's just happening faster.
It's flattened everything.
Yeah.
So it's like a band that you like. There are no undiscovered bands now.
Yeah.
It's different than in the 90s where you had I got this tape, it had this band on it. But now it's like the most obscure band ever. Spotify will just deliver it to you in tens of thousands.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we have to consider, just ease sometimes. So we code things into our experience based on many things, right? So some things are partially physical or physical and synesthetic in these different ways. And we want to take the benefits that technology is giving us without losing that sort of depth of experience.
Yeah.
And for instance, I have a really hard time. I'm not a music person. I love music, but I'm not I listened to some of your podcasts and I was like, oh my God, these people are so cool. I'm such a geek. But I have a hard time finding music now when you have to scroll this way instead of flip through something tactile sometimes,
Interesting, yeah.
And I feel the same way about food. It's a full-bodied experience. It's supposed to be taken in through many different portals.
You're totally right. So food when faced with as we both have a nice academic career, from what I understand, at least, and we'll talk about that. But my business partner and I, we came out of grad school and we're like, I don't want to make an app, right? Like, I don't want to make a site. I want to make a thing that you can feel, you have to interact with, which just goes to say, do you think that of all the art forms, food and booze are the only ones left you have to be in person to experience?
Yeah. I think that I was drawn to it because I still so much care about the physical world. That's still where we experience joy, and technology needs to enhance that joy.
Absolutely.
But we still exist, and the tactile nature of food, the tactile nature of dirt and growing. I was totally drawn to that. I did not want to be sitting at a desk looking at Excel spreadsheets.
Right.
I still love that. Also, food people that work in hospitality are so funny, and they have to think on their feet all day long.
Sure.
And they're engaging and funny in a way that I love.
I think that you're right. I think that being behind the bar, being a front of house staff, that is a team thing. Like, we are so virtual and we're so connected with this invisible tether, I suppose you could say, with Facebook and stuff. But coming into a place where you have to actually physically work as a team, someone's got to cut this thing, someone's got to carry this thing. So I imagine that passion for just the organic, the analog realm. Is that one of the reasons they've probably drawn to food? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm super analog, almost embarrassingly so. But I love the anchor of that. I mean, Wendell Berry said, pleasure, I'm going to butcher this, but basically pleasure that does not depend upon ignorance is our most profound enactment of our connection to the earth. And I love that, because it's like we eat the earth. And I think some of us still have a lot of baggage around that it's just so animal in a way.
Right.
But it is the physical, it's the figurative and literal representation of our connection to the land that we live on. Yeah. And I think that it's important to kind of acknowledge that in some, whether it's just enjoying your food. That's what his point is. Right. Pleasure. Enjoy your food,
But feel connected to it. Drink the earth. I mean, mezcal is always, sips of mezcal, that is the direct conduit to the soil. Mm-hmm. Vegetables are a wonderful conduit to the soil. I mean, even proteins.
Yeah.
Which is a little more conscious heavy. Well, so there's a lot to talk about. We can talk about the Harvard piece, we can talk about the Milan piece, we can talk about Vinaigrette, 3 locations, which we will. But you grew up in a nice green area in Washington State. Mm-hmm. What kind of things, I'm always so interested as to understand how we are a kid and we turn into these things that we're doing.
Yeah.
What, were you a smart kid, academic kid?
I was very driven from a young age. I don't know where that came from. I wasn't pressured by my family, but I was, firstborn. But I loved being outside. I loved playing sports. So I just grew up running around.
Moving.
Yeah. And I was kind of, so studied a lot, played a lot, did a lot of sports, but I was on a completely different track at that point. Yeah. So it's weird. It was formative, but I was kind of a math science person. I thought I was going to be a doctor, go down.
What did your folks do?
So my dad's a surgeon. Okay. He's an oral surgeon, and my mom's a hygienist. They met in Oklahoma and then moved to Seattle. So I had kind of ties to this whole area that I never really connected with until way later. But so that was what my parents knew, the professional track, right? Like doctor, dentist, lawyer.
Right. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, you know what you're doing.
Proven technique,
yes,
right?
You know the route, you know what happens, know, after you get out of school. It was very clear cut, and that's what I thought
would work for you.
I would do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So by the time that you are in high school, was it valedictorian? Mm-hmm. So were you an overachiever?
I was a total overachiever. Like, I was a little machine. I don't really understand. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ, Erin. Like, I was super, I mean, but everything worked. I would say I didn't struggle in high school. Like some people's high school can be very painful.
Right.
College was a lot more kind of emotionally painful for me.
Coming into your own?
I was very, very homesick. And then it was just that it was at that point, you kind of need some contrast in your life to really figure out who you are. Yeah. I was just kind of on the path of, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you do. It's all kind of laid out before you. And then all of a sudden I realized I wasn't happy with that. That's not who I was.
Passionate about that?
That's not what I wanted. Yeah.
What was that particular
I didn't know. It was just this and I think that's the other thing. It's more of like an inchoate, just kind of like there's something else for me that it starts out of. I feel like we put too much pressure on really young people to figure it all out way young. Because I felt like, so stressed about this. And I was like 20, you know what I mean?
Like you had to have a black or white answer what you're going to do for the next 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. And
that
we
is
really
stressful.
we really do expect that of kids in college. And you really don't really even know who you are yet. I think we should open it up to exploration. And that ends up happening to people in their 20s anyways.
Right.
But it's a little bit fraught because no one feels like this is okay that I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. Here are the lanes. Mm-hmm. Now, if you drive outside of it, that's at your own peril.
Yeah, right? We want to put people in boxes so bad. Yeah. And I think I started to really chafe at that when I realized, I thought I was in this box, and actually I was way not that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love math and science. I love having sort of a scientific understanding of things. It helped a lot, but I wasn't passionate in the way that I needed to be to really excel, because you have to love what you do.
Absolutely. So how long did that, because we're talking, you were in Cambridge, right? Or at Harvard.
Well, and I felt like a black sheep at Harvard. I found out later that everyone does feel that way there. Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of people bumping into
I felt like I found my best friends in the world there, and we were very close, and there's amazing people, amazing professors, incredible minds, but I was super West Coast. I felt like a fish out of water a little bit in Boston. I just felt like I was different than everyone.
What, can you describe that? I mean, I've been to both places, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what that might feel like.
So I kind of just felt like this earthy, not well, first of all, I went to public school.
Right.
And I didn't really know the sort of industry behind getting people into Harvard, and that starts when people are 10 years old and have their first, right? Yeah. And so that was new for me. And then also I'm really, really close with my family, and I went the complete opposite side of the country. So I was very homesick, bad homesick. Didn't get out of PJs for a long time, kind of never went to the dining hall for 2 months, and then finally went. I ate out of the vending machine. Speaking of terrible nutrition, I ate vending machine dinner for a long time.
You gotta do it both ways, though.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to. You gotta drink bad, you gotta drink good.
Dark side, yeah.
For sure.
So anyways, but I really do think it's kind of, a lot of people feel that way there, because you've defined yourself one way as being the best at everything, and then all of a sudden that's taken away from you when you're with a bunch of people who all have all been that. So you're kind of just it's a major transition, and I think it makes people feel like they're the ground's moving.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. I've been there one time, and not attending, but I went there and I was like, oh, this.
Yeah.
And it sucked. It's one of those things where it's you walk into a room and they just everybody's expectations about you are going to be far larger and in depth than it is to just go to school. Mm-hmm. Be a kid. You're a kid.
Yeah. I think that's the weird thing that I think back now. I'm like, oh my God, I was a baby.
Yeah.
I was a baby. So, I mean, it's not like it was that long ago, but.
Right. Long enough, though. Especially when you find that thing that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. You profoundly change and transform at an accelerated rate, I think.
Yep.
So did you finish up at Harvard?
Mm-hmm.
What did you walk away? What kind of
I walked away with an English degree, and that was mostly because I really I loved to write, and I realized when I knew that I didn't want to be a doctor that I was just going to stay in a science major because that's where I had started, but I had this opportunity to really spend my last 2 years studying something that I really wanted to spend some time. I just wanted to read and write.
What did you like? Are you someone that's into the classics? Do you like more free-formed word salad stuff? Like,
yeah, I actually ended up focusing more on like Victorian novels, like Jane Eyre. Like weird, yeah. And I also did a lot with E.M. Forster, who I love and think is so funny, and I think his voice is very relevant right now vis-a-vis what we're talking about with technology, like Howard's End. And so I only had 2 years to get everything. So I ended up I didn't write a thesis because I didn't feel like I could be expert enough on anything. I more just wanted to really immerse myself in good books, poetry, and writing. And so it ended up being a really cool education that I didn't think about at the time, but I had 2 years of intense math, science, problem sets, lab, and then 2 years of a lot of humanities. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. It's a nice balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a nice mix, I guess.
Yeah, and it was kind of a balance, and you can kind of see the intersection of the two. You know, like science is a lot fuzzier than we think it is.
Sure.
You know, and English is the humanities have a lot more sort of structure than we consider them to. You know, we kind of tend to think that math science is so rigid and the humanities are so wishy-washy, and it's not really true.
It is funny that there is a lot of structure to especially if you talk about Howard's End or Jane Eyre, any of the Bronte stuff. I mean, it is tight. It's not particularly loose and creative necessarily.
You know? Right. Well, and like good writing needs like a really strong thesis. You have to have like structure to allow all the free-flowing to happen, but it still has to have bones, you know? So, yeah.
So with you, so if you at that point like thinking, I've got this nice mix, but I'm walking away with an English degree from Harvard. Are you thinking you're going to teach? Are you thinking that you're going to write?
And that's why my dad's like, what are you going to fucking English teacher? But at that point, like Harvard doesn't have any practical majors anyways. So you know that you're just going to like learn, but you learn so much about how to solve problems in whatever major you're in.
Right.
So I knew even before I graduated that I wanted to get into fashion. I knew what the feeling, the sort of inchoate kind of germ of an idea that I was having was that I was this creative person, that I kind of was always having ideas, and I could bring that into writing papers, you know, because I could write crazy papers, you know, like about hats in Ulysses, you know, or like, so for me, the most exciting creative pursuit that was sort of in my wheelhouse at that moment was fashion.
Really?
I just loved it. I was always reading fashion magazines when I should have been studying for organic chemistry. Like, it was just the thing that I loved.
What is something about the aesthetic of fashion that you like? What is something that you would say, despite how trends go with fashion, I will always enjoy blank?
Well, style.
Yeah.
That it's this very nurturing way of bringing beauty into our days. I think it gets bastardized and manipulated by pretense in all these different ways, like, which is ultimately what kind of drove me away from it. But it's very at its essence, it can be this very loving thing, and adornment is very old. You know, I love a great piece of jewelry. It's kind of like uniform is a way of sort of, I don't know, it's like armor in a sense. It's a mood. There's a whole emotional quality to it. So that's what I was most interested in. Is I eventually wanted to be involved in creating clothes that could affect how people felt.
Interesting. So bringing really what is like structure to this different, more cerebral element or a psychological element. Yeah,
and in the same way, in a similar way to food.
It is very similar.
It's a nurturing act if you're creating something that someone's going to be putting on their person every day, you know, and so. But it's also just, I love color and design and structure. Like, it's fun to create stuff too. I love, and that's what I still get to do with restaurant. That's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. The
composition
is the creative process, is the imagination, is bringing something into life that isn't there. And that happens when you're conceiving of a line in fashion, or if you're creating a menu or designing a space. It's like super fun.
Sure. Oh, I love creating a brand.
Yeah.
I love that concept. What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? How's it going to be familiar?
Yeah,
people,
and it starts off all big and fuzzy, and you don't know, but you start to find pictures and images and text and inspiration.
You whittle it down, right?
Yeah, it's a funnel process, and it's like such a mystery.
Yeah.
It's like Clue, you're kind of tracking this thing that I think is sort of already there in some other realm, but you've got to bring it into
tap
this
into
one.
it.
Yeah,
I like that. You got to be a conduit for maybe the subconscious in a way.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So this kind of passion for fashion, which actually that could be potentially the title of this episode. That flows really well. Passion for fashion. That's a hell of an album title I've ever heard of. But it takes you to Milan.
Mm-hmm.
And you are doing what you want to with fashion. You're designing there, or are you actually modeling there? What exactly?
I was in school for fashion design, Istituto Marangoni in Milan, and so I was studying fashion design. I had worked at Harper's Bazaar before that as an intern, and then decided I didn't want to go that route. Wanted to be in design, and had an amazing experience. But I also was at a point where there was like some angst still in my life.
Where did that come from?
It was because I just was not at peace with where I was. Like I was trying to find the way, but like so the epiphany I had in Milan was like I kind of need to move to the country because I did grow up, and I still am a bumpkin for the record. Like I really like Austin, but I am going to be living in Bastrop as soon as I can because I'm a bumpkin. Some people just need.
You have this duality.
Yeah. And that's my weird Leo thing. Uh-huh. Like I'm a Leo, like I love the like activity and the social aspect of restaurants, but I also have to withdraw and have some dirt and space around me. And so I think that some people need that on a very cellular level. And that was one of the things. I had been in Boston and New York and then Milan. And I kind of was like, I need to get back to basics. And kind of be able to really feel what's going on with me and what makes me feel healthy and happy. Because you can kind of distract yourself a lot more when you're in a super urban environment.
Totally. Do you find that you just function? You don't. It never becomes introspective because you're just trying to make it to the next place.
Exactly, and it's actually physically challenging to do it. So you've always got something that's keeping you occupied, but you don't necessarily have that time to sink in. And it's painful to do that sometimes. So, and it was, I moved out to, after kind of realizing fashion wasn't quite it. And sometimes the kind of path lights up in not a negative way, but that's not quite it. I need to adjust.
It's like tuning into a radio station that's just like slightly out.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I was going to be moving back to LA or New York City and
for fashion.
Mm-hmm, trying to get a job, with a designer. And I was like, that's not what I want. Because I was still bringing that striver mentality that I just got to get the next thing done and I got to be,
right.
Even to Milan, even to Italy.
How old are we talking at this point?
So I was 22.
God, and you had that already.
Yeah. Oh my God, I had that when I was I pulled an all-nighter when I was 12. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. This is my this is the part of me that needs to I'm constantly, because the point of life is not to get
speed
there.
Through it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, it's the journey.
And I definitely had that. I had that clarity gratefully early.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't really function that well just gutting it out. Some people can just gut it out forever and they do an amazing job. Unfortunately, that's not me. I'm pretty much a wuss. You know what I mean? I like to be healthy and happy. That's when I can work really hard that way. I love it.
Enhances you too, from what I understand.
Yes.
Leos love
sun
the
sign.
sun.
Yeah. So anyways, that was kind of, I just decided to move to this piece of property in northern New Mexico that my family owned.
So that's how they connected. Mm-hmm. So was it a vacation place for them? Was it
it was
working?
Kind of it was indeterminate at that moment, but it had been a farm long ago. Water rights are super big in New Mexico. You've got to use them or you lose them, and the water hadn't been used in a long time. But fortunately, it was banked so we could get them back out. But basically, the property had been sort of in disrepair and not really taken care of for a while.
But your family had owned, how long roughly?
Not that long. It was like 5 years. So, but it was a piece, or even less than that, because we'd bought it, I think, 2 or 3 years earlier. Because my parents loved New Mexico, loved the desert as sort of a break to the Northwest, but it wasn't really, there was nothing going on there and no one living there.
Interesting.
So it just seemed to me like it could be an amazing vacation rental or a farm. Like all of a sudden, this sort of urge that I also had that was sort of latent, to own my own business, to be sort of the captain of my own ship was sort of...
That's appealing, right? Had you thought about that piece before?
I think that sort of entrepreneurial thing is something that is, you don't realize it's there, but it was always there.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to get activated. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be in a situation where, like, oh, maybe I want to own this thing. Maybe I want to grow this thing.
Yeah, and I think it's weird. It kind of dovetails with that creative impulse because creating a business is creative.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? So, yeah, I moved to the desert and started farming, really.
With no experience, right?
Well, and I spent a year reading about it, but I did have that biology sort of environmental science basis for understanding the science of organic farming. Yeah. Just a biological approach as opposed to a chemical approach. But, yeah, so that's kind of what I started. It was a little bit of a rough transition there for a bit.
It's an interesting tangent, because you're in these hustle and bustle cities, these epicenters of culture and fashion specifically, and then you go to New Mexico.
Yeah, I think it's funny. There's definitely these two sides to me, and now I'm trying to. And at one point in my life, there were way like one extreme then to the other in a very dramatic way, and now I try to balance them in a little bit more of a gentle way.
Interesting.
Because I do love to put on heels and get all dolled up and put on red lipstick, and I love fashion and I love it. Yeah. But then I love to wear my overalls and get my hands dirty and play with the pigs.
If you think about it, that's the perfect combo, right? So you can relax and be ensconced in the earth and then go out and be a social butterfly.
It's very balancing for me. It works for me. Sometimes what we think the world wants us to be is it makes sense to the world. This is how this person should look and act, and but that might be very disjunctive for us. Yeah. It has to fit for you. It doesn't matter really. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I mean, everybody's different, and I don't know a lot of farmers that like the gregarious and social element too, like a aristocratic almost element of going out and. Maybe you don't party, but perhaps you like to dress up and go to a cocktail event, right? I mean, it's an interesting duality. I'm going to keep using that word. I love that word. I like that. But it's never enough for, I think, you and for me, the kinds of people that we are. Yeah, we've got it, but there's got to be that next thing. And so the next thing, it seems like, for you is the restaurant. And Albuquerque or Santa Fe was
Santa Fe was first, yeah.
But how does that work out?
So I just had this idea that I was making all this stuff and I was thinking about health and thinking about food and growing food. Right. And then, ideas are weird. They just sort of, one day they're there and they're germinating for a while, and then all of a sudden the little seed head pops, I can't remember the exact moment except to say, because I was a complete outsider on the restaurant world, but I think sometimes it's helpful to have a beginner's, outsider's perspective.
I think so too, yeah.
Because you can see what's missing in a way that people who are in it can't.
Yeah, it's
they're too busy making payroll. They're too busy, bailing the ship.
They've lost perspective. Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, I could see that there was this restaurant sales were increasing hugely and there's an increase in the restaurant industry sales growth, dollars spent outside of the home eating. And then there's a huge trend nationwide in wellness and people dieting or trying to eat better. it's a major problem in America, and yet there were so few restaurants. Like at that time, zilch, because it was like
that you could get something that is
were
healthy,
focused
right? Yeah.
focused on the intersection of those two major trends. So, I mean, obviously, I didn't have that aha moment. That's the sense that it makes me now. I was just going, I can't get a good salad anywhere. You can't really eat healthily anywhere. All my girlfriends were always
right?
like, we're cherry picking this one from here and this one from there. And it's an afterthought at basically every restaurant. And yet here's this huge growing market kind of segment that's basically unmet demand.
Did you ever think about doing it in a place beyond New Mexico?
Yeah, I always so I wrote a business plan, and it was always meant to be a concept that had multiple locations, but not like some gross, terrible chain. But I considered it that because it felt like a concept that just was needed. There were starting to be competing concepts opening at that time. So it was something, I think ideas are weird in that way too. They start to like flourish in different areas.
Sure.
Or I could say that I put the idea in the universe and other people stole it. I don't know.
Chicken or the egg, I don't really know.
So anyways, that's business plan. Took me 3 years to actually get Vinny open from there. I got a truck because I was going to sling salads out of a truck, and then this location became available. I was able to do a lease purchase on it, agreement with the owner. So things kind of started. I didn't know it wasn't easy going. Like, oh, this will.
No, of course not. Yeah. I mean, you got a bit to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and I always had to have people. Like, I knew what I didn't know. I knew I was not going to do this without some like help of people who had way more experience than me. But I don't think experience is the limiting factor
I don't think so. Yeah.
In restaurants or any new business, it's the idea and the orientation to the customer. Like if you have that connection, if you have something people really need that they can't get elsewhere, that is the thing.
So when you think about the actual build out of I'm going to call it Vinny, which I think is a very nice, cute way to phrase it. What was the thing you wanted a customer walking away with?
A feeling of delight and wellness, nourishment, like deeper nourishment. I think obviously to feel light and healthy and well fed. But Vinny was always after not just the physical idea of health, but also the emotional.
Mental health, is that fair to say?
Yeah. That eating is an emotional thing.
Sure.
That it's plugged into our emotions in all these different ways that kept us alive, really. It needed to be that way, so we feel vulnerable when we're hungry. We feel cranky. Hangriness is a real thing.
It's a real thing, yeah.
So, and that people needed to feel safe, because a lot of people feel a lot of guilt and a lot of fear around food and all these negative emotions, and I wanted it to be sort of a sphere of positivity around food.
Totally
and health.
Accepting, and you could come in there and communal, maybe?
Yeah, and not deprivational either. Like health at that time, and still even a little bit now, Americans define healthy as like by omission. By what we don't eat, what's bad that we're able to cut out. And I don't really think that's health. I want to kind of come up with something that's a little like
inclusive.
Yeah, what do you eat? What are these amazing, veggie, color, flavor rich dishes that you are eating? Yeah. As opposed to I'm not eating gluten, I'm not eating sugar, I'm not eating dairy,
which begs the question, and of course this is going to be a slight tangent, and we'll come back, but when you think about people needing to feel nourished and communal and almost not coddled but cared for with their food,
it's very maternal in that way.
I think so too. How do you feel about that trend of people somehow being, because you're right, health is defined by what you don't do. Mm-hmm. So how do you think that gluten particularly, which is the kind of the center of not doing something, like, oh, I can't eat gluten. Like, how do you feel about these trends in food ultimately? Okay,
well, I'm the kind of person that if you tell me I can't have something, I'm going to think about it constantly and crave it more.
Yeah.
And I think that the problem with a lot of these diets and cleanses and, intolerances is it sets up this extremism. Like, it's a nice idea if you're like the 5 or 1% of the population that can stay on these ridiculously difficult to maintain diets. Yeah. Like, that's awesome. I am not one of those people. And I also think that when you start to do that, it creates this idea of like waiting for your life to start when you're super healthy. Mm-hmm. And
interesting point. Yeah.
And so I don't think that's really real. Like, it's not where real life happens. Like, your life happens right now. Yeah. And there's a little bit of a like extremism of, okay, it gets harder and harder for that time when you're going to, do the perfect Whole30.
Yeah.
And then when you're off of it, you're crazy off of it and crazy out of whack. And I see that happening still.
Sure.
In the ways that, oh my God, I feel so guilty. I had so much gluten. I have gluten face. And then
gluten face. Oh my God, get out of here.
So there's I don't think that's the answer for, if we're honest with ourselves. Like, I think there has to be a middle road where life starts right now.
Moderation always.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And all things, including moderation,
Absolutely.
Like, so I guess I don't think that's the best definition of health, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I think health is how much you enjoy your food, the amount of time. Like, I think a better resolution, for instance, is I'm going to just spend more time eating with people I love.
Right.
Without distractions. Like, that's a great New Year's resolution.
That's a way better barometer of success than saying, I'm not going to do these things.
Yeah, because you're not what you don't eat, Like, I want to define my life by what I do, not what I don't do.
That's a good point. I mean, and that goes back to straight edgeism and punk rock in the 80s and stuff, and like Mormons. I mean, there's so many different kinds of cultural artifacts where people don't do things, and that's how they define themselves. Vegetarianism.
Yeah.
It's like that. I don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
At any rate, but it is kind of like this social phenomenon. So after, let's say, year one with the first Vinny location, Santa Fe, what did you learn at that point?
Oh my God. Well,
I know it's probably a laundry list of
things.
It
was crazy on the job training, and it was like, I was so out of balance. I mean, I was just working crazy hours. Every time I open a new, like, it's just hard. Yeah. The first year is hard. I learned so much about the business that I didn't know. Like, I mean, I knew nothing, which was great. Because ignorance is bliss in that situation. Sure. I just blindly plowed ahead. I probably would have been scared shitless if I had had more of a clue about how hard the business is, I knew kind of, but how high the failure rate is, all that jazz. I think, in the beginning, what was the most unexpected was how to manage people. And restaurants are this motley crew of incredible but slightly crazy people.
All kinds. Yeah.
Like, we're just like, the people that are drawn to that business are interesting, unique characters. A lot of people are just passing through on their way to something else. But having really lofty goals and a mission that was very clear from the beginning, but then how to translate that into the little details of just,
Did you find you were good at that? Communicating with other people, motivating
I probably sucked at the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm so much more chill now. Like, I think at the beginning, you really want to I'm in charge. Right. I should be respected.
Well, ego, right?
Yes.
Comes into
play. And now I don't lead that way. I was much more of a little tyrant at the beginning.
Got it.
But I was also I didn't have, there was no option to fail. Like, I was what are you going to do? Not exactly.
do this?
Yeah, exactly. I was all in, chips all in at that point. So it was every little detail was really important to me. So, and it still is, but at that, I was there every shift all day in a different way than I am now in terms of operationally.
Sure. What about how long was it before the second location opened up?
So we opened, it was 3 years of being open before I found the second location and started construction. Then we got open that next year. So 4 years between the first one and the second one opening. And so involved in that was my education.
But totally different experience the second time, I imagine.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing a lot more to the table.
Yeah. So, there's momentum. I think and there was a lot more momentum, for instance, in Albuquerque than there was in Austin, which is something I didn't think about because we had brand equity that we built at this little place in Santa Fe that just got busier and busier and busier. And it had customers from Albuquerque. It had a following.
Yeah.
And you've got some momentum there. You're still sort of spinning this solar system into orbit whenever you open a new place, but there was a lot more momentum.
Just in the market itself, right?
Yeah. You're starting something. Restaurants are really like, there's a lot of inertia. Once they get going, they go. Yeah. But starting is always challenging. But the second one from going from Santa Fe, from Albuquerque, wasn't as much of a leap, and we had a lot of buzz and a lot of customers that were crossover.
Yeah.
It was a bigger space though, so we still got our butts kicked because
more people, right?
Yeah, like the waves, like Little Vinny is small, and we'll sometimes turn it like 4 times, 6 times even in the high season, but it's small, so they're little waves.
Right.
Albuquerque is a bigger space, like the Austin restaurant, so it's just a different experience operationally. So you always like go in and you try to fix this thing that you see as a problem in the existing one, and then you've created another kind of problem.
It's whack-a-mole, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I've solved this thing, and then it's a whole other thing. It's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to a different state now. Give me a whole new set of problems. That's about where I'm at. I want to deal with different things.
Exactly.
And so it looks like something around February 17th of last year that you opened up Vinaigrette in Austin, which is a different market.
Yeah.
But we're talking almost a year to the day. How has this chapter been for you?
It's been incredible. It's been challenging. And I always think of it just because I'm like cheesy Santa Fe kind of vibe this way. Like, it's always emotional. There's always an emotional component of growth for me because there's a letting go that has to happen, and then being in a whole other state. There's kind of that has been just sort of finding my roots, and my rootedness has been challenging. Which is why I'm so excited to have this farmland in Bastrop, because to me that's like having that kind of real connection to the land here. Yeah. The restaurant too is like our philosophical center. It's really important.
Sure. I mean, it is literally putting down roots.
Yeah. And that's what I think is cool about us, is that we want to be that connected to the community that we're like, nah, we are growing here. Yeah. Like, we are part of the dirt cycle here, Are
the people much different? I know the answer to this, but in which way are people in Austin different than, let's say,
Austin's
Albuquerque?
A lot younger. Yeah. But there's a huge... New Mexico is super cool. Like, Santa Fe is a great place to visit, and so we had tons of Austin customers. There's a huge Austin Santa Fe. Like, the whole first month we were open, everyone that had visited us in Santa Fe or Albuquerque was like our customer base to start. It was crazy. It was so sweet. Funny, they were bringing in people, like... because we kind of just opened quietly, and so there's a huge overlap there. That was the reason that I came to check out Austin, is that customers that lived in Austin and came to one of our locations, like, would not leave me alone. So that there was a lot of overlap there. Yeah. And so I knew that there was some quality, that would make Vinny a good fit.
Yeah.
But
it's already like calling to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then I fell in love with the location and the tree, and I have to have that
South Congress, right?
Yeah. And it's a really special lot, and it kind of has this historical kind of gravitas. So, but Austin's it's a much younger market. I kind of think of the two places like yin and yang. Like Austin's like more like high energy, more outward, more masculine a little bit. Yeah, okay. And so that's the yang, I guess. Sure. And then Santa Fe is a little bit more inward and social, like not soulful and sort of feminine. It's like the yin and the yang.
Yeah.
But there's a real wellness culture here.
You can cater to that.
Yeah.
It's implicit to, or rather intrinsic to Austin as a place. Is it, I don't know if difficult's the right word, but you're learning new things, yeah?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, like, Austin first of all, there's an incredible food scene here. Yeah. Not that there isn't in New Mexico, but it's on another level here. Sure. There's just a ton of competition. So just, and I knew that, and I wanted this one, just across the board to be excellent,
right?
Because you can't not be. You're
well,
down the road from
many
a million
things,
incredible, great places where people can go eat. Not necessarily doing. Again, there wasn't a lot of places that were. There are some awesome ones, but directly focused on wellness and health as much. So we felt like we didn't have a lot of direct competition, but there's just so much good food, and at the end of the day, you got to speak to your customer through deliciousness. Like that's the mode of communication.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And you guys have kind of a cocktail program too.
And we did that here because I wanted to
know that it would work.
I knew. I'm like, what are you gonna do under this tree? But sit around and drink a little bit.
Sure. So, and if you get the right stuff, it's no different than eating something organic or.
Well, and I think I was interested in balance, we obviously wanted to make sure that our cocktail program sort of fit with our larger brand, which is, I think there's a healthy, balanced way to imbibe. And
absolutely.
And so our drinks aren't super high alcohol, and the cocktails tend to kind of focus on the juices.
Yeah.
But alcohol's all botany. It all starts with a plant, and then there's distillation with interesting distillates that you can play off those notes. So I think that's super fun, and fits with our sort of produce focus.
So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's very much in line with the vision, healthy, because you can drink healthily, whether that involves moderation or whatnot. But I just sometimes I can't trust the person that doesn't drink. Anything, it's all right if you just drink beer. I don't care about that. But if I don't drink, why?
I think there's something about just letting go and then enjoying, that sort
just let it happen. Yeah.
Well, and for instance, one of the things brunch, we also started a brunch program here a lot because we were all those of us who moved from Santa Fe or Albuquerque were really missing chili.
Oh my God! Yeah.
So, because it's a different thing, not Texas chili, like New Mexico chili.
Totally get it. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
green or red, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but brunch is definitely a moment for day drinking in Austin too.
It is. It's a great thing.
But what I love about it is here, it's one of the last bastions of people setting aside large chunks of time for enjoying food and drink.
Yeah.
It's just our other. One thing I see in Austin is we're a lunch-driven concept. I mean, it's just lunchy food for even people who aren't core customers.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in Austin are so busy, and it's that they're not taking lunch breaks. It's becoming a thing of the past. And so that's the only thing that makes me a little bit bummed sometimes. Because I think health, again, is do you think that you are worthy enough to sit down and eat lunch? And this is a question I have to ask myself, because I will work through lunch all the time because I work in the biz.
Right.
But I think if Austin peeps need to focus on something in terms of health, it's eating lunch, taking the time for it, because you're driving in traffic, there's just a real pressure to eat while you're doing three other things.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So, I mean, God, we look back at this inventory of your life. That's what this conversation will turn into.
Gosh. I'm going to go home and weep.
This many degrees, this many blah, blah, blah. So 3 locations later, and I'm sure there's something next. But what I really am more interested in is, has your personal life ever came at the cost of your business life? In terms of love, in terms of family, were those things that ever were of interest to you?
Yes, I think that's what I am sort of adjusting now. There, especially in restaurants, there's and bars, there's a tendency for it to be all of your life.
Yeah.
And I tend to just suck everyone into okay, so we're all going to do this together.
Right.
But I took August off and went home and it's crazy what I did, but I got a flip phone and I still have it. I haven't gone back to my smartphone, but and I spent the whole month with my mom and my dad, and because I love them so much, and yet I feel you can always sort of say, we just use our busyness as an excuse for not connecting with the people that we love. That's sometimes.
That's a great point.
And I was really doing that. And I still do that sometimes because it's a crazy business and my life is batshit crazy sometimes.
But it'll always be that. That's not going to ever change.
Exactly. Again, it's that whole idea. It's like your life is now.
Yeah.
Like it's like, so stop now if you want.
Yeah. Like what are you waiting to get better? You're waiting for the industry to stop being busy?
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like those. And there's probably a part of me that likes it and is feeding off of that. And so I have to like, if I want things to be different, they have to be different now. Yeah. Yes. So yes, it's definitely something that where I would say that, and that's partly my personality. I'm kind of blabbering here, but the restaurant is so much me. Like I put so much of my own like style and love and just every little detail I perseverated over and put like I felt like it was like Care Bear stare on stuff in Austin, like and all of them, but like so sometimes that means that I'm getting all of my juice out of the business and I have to make myself stop and go, you need to be doing those things that are unrelated.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you live in a sense, what is it? Not a monetary, but like a solitary life in a way, because you're focused on one. And this is not a critique. I did the same thing for years, but letting people in is the most enriching thing. Mm-hmm. Letting your family in, letting your friends in, stepping away from your obligations and just having some time to enjoy a mezcal or a nice meal. You know what I mean? So it seems like
like
you
those are the most important. Like listening to the sound of the wind in the trees, like it's weird. Those are those moments that happiness bubbles up in, and so you've got to make space and time for them. And I think in the last, despite the Austin opening being quite an intense push for a variety of reasons, but that has been sort of the theme of my life for the last few years of just like finding those things that give me a sense of peace and balance and space, like meditating. I also met my fiance Boo Boo and all this, like, so all of a sudden there's someone that I feel so strongly about that
changes it, doesn't it?
That I'm like, whoa, I want to be outside of this because I want to be with this person.
You don't. That change, and God, and I had this conversation the other day that we're so apologetic, us entrepreneurs, about love, right? Like, well, don't worry, it won't get in the way of the business, like, but it should.
But it's as important as like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love the idea that everything that we want because we think it'll make us happier in the having of. Yeah. So why don't we just be happy now? That's because we don't. Why do we want this, beautiful, successful brand? Why do we want the money and the things and the whatever? It's all because we think it's going to make us happy. And first of all, it doesn't. Happiness makes you happy,
Yeah.
And so, I think I've definitely had that kind of
seems like a realization in a sense.
Yeah, and it's kind of a constant theme in my life, but like in a deeper and deeper way. It's like sort of sometimes it feels like we're spiraling around this stuff, you know, and it's like because I definitely had a similar awareness when I was very young of like, this isn't right for me, but you just making time for myself or not putting the cart before the horse, I think is a big
it's important
idea for any entrepreneur. It's like your business actually follows your health, not the other way around.
If you're not good, it's not good. Mm-hmm. It can only put out what you put in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not always time. Sometimes quality is you can get just as much done in an hour as 8 hours, just depending what you do. Mm-hmm. So I've got 2 more questions for you, and I promise they're not going to be too challenging, or maybe they will be. I don't know. We'll have to see. So you've 3 locations in. That's more than most people can ever account for with their entrepreneurial spirit and their business acumen and savvy and all this. What does this look like, though? Like, is there an end of the track? Or is it more locations? Are you wanting to sell the concept? What do you think the end game is?
So, I'm very much someone who doesn't... I think the future is a direction, not a destination. I think I read that in Pixar guy's book, Creativity Inc., which is such a good book. And that resonated so much with me because I don't I try to have a sense of the future because I think that's my job.
Yeah.
Is like, this is where the ship's heading, guys. This is a picture. This
You're
is
the captain,
the world
right?
we're trying to create. But if I'm too specific about it, then you make poor choices and do boneheaded things, when the world's telling you, no, that's not the right choice right now. So I want to continue to expand Vinaigrette as it feels right when the spaces and the relationships and the opportunities arise in an organic way. And that was always the mission. I'm going to do this organically in many ways, right?
Not a surprise.
Yeah. But I also see these issues with sustainability in food, and I want to continue to expand that part of what we do, which is to say solving some of these problems with food sourcing that exist that have not been solved yet. So the farm in Bastrop is really the next step on the journey for me, and being able to include other restaurants and other farms in that, so we can start to help one another out, because it's way, way, way harder than anyone outside of the industry can understand to source sustainably. Because restaurants are kind of getting we just take all the heat for anything that's wrong, kind of.
Oh, totally.
So anyways, that's what I'm most excited about is sort of creating hubs of sustainable food team-uppage kind of
collaborations.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk more about that piece, because there's
that's a whole other. But
No, I mean, in terms of alcohol, actually.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I'm so myopic. It's but what about the alcohol, Erin? No, but honestly,
but
there's a
it's
lot
related.
of opportunity.
Yeah.
There's many native plants. There's lots of room and opportunity for cultivating brilliant types of agave that grow really well in Texas. So there's lots of
especially
stuff.
the way things have changed. Yeah, I'd imagine that would be an incredible. And then trying to team up with other, I think we could all just work together. Restaurants could collaborate in a way that would make them all more sustainable.
I think so. Especially in Austin, which is a great opportunity, because you have a captive audience.
And you have incredible farmland, incredible dirt, right outside the city.
Yeah.
You don't have that in other metropolitan centers like you do here. Bastrop dirt is ridiculously beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so the last thing, and because this is always a question for me to try to understand kind of what makes people tick, maybe on a comedic level or an artistic level. So you are having a meal or having a cocktail at your favorite establishment in the world. Let's say it's London. Let's say it's LA. I don't know. You could sit and have a meal or a drink with anybody, living or deceased. Who would you like to sit there and just spend a couple hours getting to know?
Okay. So can I have two?
Sure.
Okay. So it would be, and these are so funny, they would probably not want to sit down together. I really, Wendell Berry is super my hero. I started reading him. My mom forced it on me when I was very young. And so he really, to me, is the father of the food movement.
Yeah.
Saying all this stuff when none of us could hear it way back in the 70s and 80s. And then Michael Pollan picked up the torch. So Wendell Berry, and then Louis C.K., because I love him.
Louis C.K.
But the three of us together would be a really interesting conversation.
It would be so strange.
It would be that might be like crickets.
There's got to be I bet as long as you guys are sipping something to facilitate banter, I think you guys would be in good shape.
Yeah.
I think it'd be pretty.
And it would probably be, because Wendell Berry's from Kentucky.
Oh,
so,
geez.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It'd be great.
Yeah.
You just bring some bourbon.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be enough bourbon and they'd be buds. So.
Totally. Well, you guys at Vinaigrette here on South Congress, just about to celebrate the year anniversary. Any special festivities to kind of kick off?
I don't know what we're going to do. We're rolling out a bunch of new kind of seasonal specials. Stuff that I was just really craving. Yeah. And then, we'll probably do something fun. I just got back in town, though, and I'm going to get together with my crew. We're having our holiday party late, so that's our next focus.
As long as you're having it, right?
All of us getting together, having a good old time. And then, we'll have to come up with something fun. We'll probably post about it and celebrate our year, because it's been a lot of fun, and a lot of my peeps have moved here from a couple of my managers moved from New Mexico and have just fallen in love with Austin and love the city, so yeah.
It's amazing. Well, I can't wait to see what happens in the future. I'm always trying to guess. I'm always trying to infer maybe what kinds of things will happen. So it's exciting, Erin. I think that there's a massive opportunity with the farmland piece. We're going to talk about that more because I've got that same kind of focus, but not in a restaurant capacity.
Yeah.
But it's really been brilliant chatting, and well done.
Thank you.
3 locations, change of careers, so to speak.
Yep.
You're here in Austin doing a great job.
Oh, well, thank you.
So I appreciate you taking the time to sit down
No,
and chat
thanks
with
for
me.
having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So there we have it, Miss Erin Wade, the fine proprietor of the Vinaigrette restaurants. Again, celebrating a 1-year anniversary in this 3rd Austin location located on 2201 College Avenue. Great chatting with her. Very, very bright, very ambitious. And I can't wait to see what kind of innovation stems from the Bastrop / Austin farming scene, like a neo-farming scene. There's so many cool things emerging in this city, food-related, booze-related, and I can't wait to be a part of it. And Erin, hopefully we can collaborate sometime in the future. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how you deal with death and cancer when your family is going through some shit, or if you're questioning if they should ever make yet another Ring sequel, please keep dancing.